Tim Roush,
And I'm Daniel. Top.
So our topic is on memory, and we're going to give you, our plan is to give you a brief overview of memory, and then we're going to try to relate it to motor learning. So as you see, we got our two definitions of memory. Memory is the mental capacity of retaining, recalling, and reviving facts, events, impressions, experiences, etc., or the ability of the mind to store and recall past sensations, thoughts, knowledge, etc. So in essence, it's your body's ability to remember something in your life. And then, just for the sake of this class, we put what motor learning is in there, the process of leading to permanent change in the understanding of movement or action.
Alright, then we have the three types of memory, which is like called the dynamic system of memory. And we got the sensory memory. It's mostly based off the five senses that we have. So it's something like when you're driving inside a car, right? And then you're like looking at the window, you see like a lot of objects like passing by, but it doesn't you memorize them for like the rest of your life, right? You just memorize them for like that quick second that you're driving by. And that's the definition. And then you got the short-term memory. And what short-term memory is like something that you need to remember for like at least like a minute. It could last from 10 seconds to 15 seconds within a whole minute. Like for example, it could be something that you're reading like in a paragraph. Like when you had to read like something off a book, and then so you're reading it, and then you have to memorize that whole paragraph just so you can memorize, something within a minute, and that's a short-term memory. Or another example from Nemo? Finding Nemo. Was it Finding
Yeah,
Nemo? Yeah. You know how you have Dorothy? You remember Dorothy? He's like, oh, hi, I'm Dorothy. And it's like, what's your name? And then she doesn't even wait for your name. She's like, oh, hi, I'm Dorothy. Yeah, that's short-term memory loss.
Another thing to mention with short-term memory is we've all heard the idea of cramming, right? You haven't studied for your test. Last day, got to cram, right? The big thing though with your short-term memory is it's got a limited amount of space. As you can see here, I'll zoom in a little bit on this, but all your short-term memory is here in your prefrontal lobe, or specifically it's your medial prefrontal lobe. And usually the capacity or your ability to remember something is usually up to about seven things is the typical idea of how many things you can keep in your short-term memory before.
Plus or minus 2.
Plus or minus 2.
7 plus or minus 2.
Okay. Alright, cool. Because I found different options that I found. Some that said you could get all the way up to, very intellectual people can get all the way up to 10. Some said, like you said, the plus minus 2 option. But just kind of that most 7. The best example and idea that for this was the idea of it being, your short-term memory being a chalkboard, a whiteboard, or a sketch pad. And the idea behind that is you're filling up this board with information you're getting from reading, seeing something, from your sensory memories. You're picking up stuff. And your short-term memory is something you're trying to remember. And eventually, your whole board gets filled up. You can only have stuff on this board. So in order for you to put something else in your short-term memory, you have to erase something. It's kind of the idea of why cramming doesn't work. Because you can only maintain so much in that. And short-term memory then leads into long-term memory. And long-term memory, things are transferred from short-term memory to long-term memory. A lot of articles will say, you're thinking about it more. You're thinking about it consciously. You're going back to the idea. So we'll use Trey and his football team as an example. They're learning plays. How are they going to remember what they're to do? They're going to go through the process of learning it in practice. Then they're going to go home. They're going to look back at their paper. Okay, this is this play, this is this play, this is this play. Okay, Then they're going to go to practice the next day, and they're going to be talking about some more. And then just kind of that idea of consciously retaining it in your mind leads it into leads it into your long-term memory. For long-term memory, we have explicit and implicit long-term memory. Explicit, also known as declarative, or the knowing what part long-term in your memory, is the part of memory that retains facts and events and refers to those memories that can be consciously recalled or declared, or in instance the ability to recall facts. So, Dr. H has used this term before. We all know when Columbus sailed over here, 1492. What day were you born on? Who teaches this class? Facts, information that you can regurgitate, which is a lot of what us college kids think of school. And then the other one is implicit or procedural. This is the know-how. This is the part of long-term memory that, don't get me wrong, both of these play a role in motor learning, but this is the big one that plays a key role in your motor learning because it's the unconscious action of memory, of skills, and how to do things. It's the use of objects and movements of the body. As you see, we have a dog here riding a bike, but riding a bike, being able to play the piano, the guitar, those are all different types of implicit, procedural, long-term memory that you'll know how. And as you can see from the bottom here, bottom right, the two different parts of these memories, the long-term memories, they're stored in two different parts of the brain. Start with the explicit. Go ahead, Dan.
No, you go for it.
All right, go for it. So the explicit is found in the medial temporal lobe. So you can see you got this is the temporal lobe. Great picture, right? So then explicit is split into two different categories. Episodic, which is the part of memory that allows for specific recalling of events. So let's say you went on a hike last week, and in that hike, your ability